But just to get started, if I could introduce Sid from Fundamental Research. Sid, take it away.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dave. So, Colton, I'm just going to share my screen first.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I think you can see it's. Do you see the PDF document? All right. So today I'll walk you through our findings on the copper market. Before I jump into details, I'll share with you our key takeaways from the study. We believe near-term demand will be driven by the post-pandemic global economic recovery, and long-term demand growth will be driven by electric vehicles or EVs. The copper market is expected to be in a small surplus in the near term, this year and next year, but we're expecting the market to move to a serious deficit by the end of the decade. With regard to prices, they are a record high at about $425 today per pound. We're expecting correction in prices to $375 this year, and expect long-term prices to be above $3 a pound versus the historic average of $1.33 per pound. So let's start with the demand side of things. Copper has a wide range of applications ranging from buildings, equipment, infrastructure, transportation, applications that are directly correlated to global GDP growth. This is also why copper is also known as Dr. Copper, as prices typically give us an idea of the overall health of the global economy. China, of course, is the largest consumer, accounting for over 50% of global consumption. Now, copper demand has grown historically at about 2.8% per year. The current consumption is about 25 million tons. We believe the global economic recovery post-pandemic will be the primary near-term demand driver. As you can see here, with successful vaccination campaigns in advanced economies, we are expecting an economic recovery in Q3, Q4 of this year. Electric vehicles are expected to be the biggest long-term demand driver. Copper is essential for EV production. Approximately 180 pounds of copper is used in a single electric vehicle. That's for sure on the chart here. Now, we believe electric vehicles, prices of electric vehicles will be competitive starting 2024. That's when the demand or the sales of EVs will start to ramp up. The current sales of EVs globally is about 3 million vehicles a year, and the consensus forecast is that it'll reach 30 million vehicles by 2030. Now, this implies that the copper demand from EVs alone will increase from the current 180,000 tons a year to over 3 million tons a year by 2030. Now, this is about 9% of the total copper demand, versus the current share of EV is just 0.8% of the total demand. With that kind of forecast, we expect copper demand to reach 35 million tons by the end of the decade, up from the current 25 million tons a year. Now let's look at the supply side of things. Chile and Peru are the top producers. They account for about 40% of global production. Mine production accounts for 82% of the current consumption. The remaining demand is met through recycling and also from scrap supply. Now, we see there are two big issues with copper supply. Number one is declining grades. As you can see from the chart here, grades are down 50% over the last 30 years. The current average grade is about 0.5% across all global mines, down from over 1% 30 years ago. Now, this has resulted an increase in production costs almost every year. The second big issue we are seeing these days is that major producers like Chile, Peru are planning to raise taxes or royalties to capitalize on higher copper prices. This will also again result in higher production costs going forward. In terms of when you put demand and supply together, we are expecting to see a small surplus in both in 2021 and 2022, which is why we expect copper prices could drop from the current levels down to the $3.54 range in the next 6 months. But in terms of long-term forecast, this chart beautifully explains or kind of visualize. You can visualize what we think about the long-term condition of the copper market. We are going to see a significant supply deficit, close to 3.3 million tons of copper deficit, which is over 10% of global consumption that year. We're going to see a deficit, and that means that we are going to likely see significantly higher average copper prices over the next decade versus the historic average of just $1.33 per pound. In terms of prices, current prices, as I mentioned, are at record highs, $4.25 a pound today. Copper was the best performer among all mainstream metals last year. As you can see here, copper prices are up 45% year over year. Gold is down. But we looked at consensus market forecast, and the consensus forecast for this year is $3.87, and for next year is $3.65. But internally, we ran some regression models. We looked at copper prices, we look at consumption, and we also looked at the supply deficit or surplus. Historically, these three factors had our copper prices very highly correlated to consumption and yearly supply deficit or surplus. We built a regression model, and that model gave us an average pricing of $3.75 per pound this year, and for next year is $3.34 per pound. And the long-term average, we believe prices will be over $3 a pound over the next decade. One of the key things I want to note here that we believe that almost all the major undeveloped copper projects, the break-even price is $2.50 or higher. So copper prices have to be at least 20% higher or $3 or higher to incentivize these copper developers to keep funding and advance those projects. In terms of sector valuations, this table summarizes what juniors are trading at these days. It's about 3 cents a pound. We're using 100% of measured and indicated and 50% inferred. So if you are looking at any copper junior for investing, look at their resource, multiply by the 3 cents, compare that number to the company's enterprise value. You can get an idea if the shares are undervalued or overvalued. In this report, we also talked about gold a bit because copper projects tend to be associated with gold. And so we're expecting gold prices to be strong this year. We're more bullish on gold than copper this year, primarily due to inflation, lower interest rates, a 27% increase in money supply year over year, and increasing production costs. You're also seeing central banks starting to increase their gold purchases. And we also expect a high volatility in crypto, Bitcoin prices, to drive some investors back into gold. In terms of valuation, North American gold producers always get a premium. They're trading at North American gold developers, sorry. They're trading at $69 an ounce versus African counterparts, African gold juniors are trading at $45 an ounce. So that's it from me. To conclude, we believe copper gold projects look very attractive in this environment, especially ones in attractive jurisdictions and obviously high grades. So thank you for the opportunity, Dave.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Sorry about the issues in the chat here. I think some people are just getting into the meeting that should not be. We do had a question. Just going to pull it up here, Sid, if you could take a look at it. So it says here, what's the difference between betting that copper prices will increase versus investment in a copper producer / developer?
it's two different things from my perspective. One is you are betting on a sector. You have more certainty on like, from our outlook, we think that it's easier to predict the outlook of a sector than a specific company, because the company you're looking at not just related to sector specific developments, you're also going to see or be exposed to company specific developments, for which we need a separate set of analysis. You want to look at management, the projects, their jurisdiction, management's vision to advance a project, financing. So a lot of moving pieces come into the puzzle when you're looking into investing in a company, versus if you're looking at investing in a commodity, it's just supply and demand metrics. Hope that I answered your question.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the presentations from the companies now. We will have to just switch it up a bit. I know we said Nobel was going to go first, but core assets, there's just a bit of a need for him to go first. So if Nick, if you're available, you can go ahead and share your screen wherever you are. There you are.
Says host disabled participant screen sharing. Could you give me access?
Okay, just here, go ahead. You should be good now.
Thank you. Okay, I believe you can see my screen there now. So I'm going to run everyone through very quickly here in 5 minutes here about the Core Assets projects.
Nick was signed in.
He wasn't a co-host though.
Yeah,
You can't make him.
I can't make him a co-host. I sent you a message.
Okay, we'll continue. Yeah, so we're just going to go through a few aspects here of the project quickly. So just to touch on the copper aspect to follow up, copper's at 5-year highs, has been this year anyway, and our property has the potential to host copper in both porphyry and a CRD type model. And CRDs are mined underground, which leaves a smaller environmental footprint, which is great. So we'd like to touch on that a little bit here to go to a transition to a cleaner, low carbon future. A little touch on silver. We have extremely high grade silver at our project, and there's twice as much silver in battery electric cars as there is in ICE. So currently, right now, the team on the ground is tracking these high grade silver mantos back to the source. Quick little touch on the regional aspect here. We're in an area where there's large companies that are producing deposits. Very high grade results here so far, and they're repeatable. We have a massive land package, 260 square kilometers, and there's no net smelter royalties, no option payments. And again, we're following that CRD model. Again, here's another little picture. This is the Stikine terrain here in navy blue color. And we are in the Stikine terrain, and we're following something that a lot of these other deposits and companies are following, which are major fault zones. We are on the Llewellyn Fault Zone right here, and that is thought to be the mobilization area for what we're seeing at surface. We're using a proven model. All of these deposits that are located on the right-hand side here, they have all been found using this deposit model. It's a newer deposit model that started about 20 years ago, and it's like I said, it's proven to find deposits. We do have massive sulfide at surface, what's called a manto. And we do have a 20-kilometer length of limestone, so we have room to grow in the regional sense. So that's a very good thing to have for these deposits, and if we see them at surface, we can follow them all the way back to the source. And then we have our high grade here in these chimneys, and in the red here, and then we can have a lower grade porphyry copper molybdenum style deposit back at the intrusive stock. Something interesting to take a look at here is a comparison model between our property on the right here and Bingham Canyon. Bingham Canyon is a massive copper mine in Utah. We have these mantos that are located on the outside of the porphyry copper zone. We have high grade copper up to 8% here in the northeast, and then 10 kilometers to the southwest, we have our CRD mantos. Note the scale here, 10 kilometers. So there's potential here for more than one porphyry feeder system. This is down to the southwest here, which is the CRD, carbonate replacement area. There was a historical EM survey done, which we're following up upon right now with a versatile time domain electromagnetic system, which is a higher resolution airborne system. And it shows something that's very interesting here. It shows that that a potential manto is continuing all the way through the property, which is it was thought in the past to be more vein, a vein hosted thing, which wouldn't be of interest, but now it's the model that we're following now is carbonate replacement, which is completely different, which it's a continuous massive sulfide all the way back to the source. So again, we are following this source as we speak. This is what I'm talking about. These are the pods that you see at surface. It's your ore fluid is your acid and your limestone is your base. The acid basically comes through and dissolves the carbonate, and sometimes if you're lucky, it will come to surface like it does in our property. Anywhere you see these little gossinous areas here, rusty areas, those are CRD pods coming to surface. This is a picture from yesterday. We're trying to vector to the source. This is using phosphorescence of 450 nanometer light, and this is white normally in white light, and when you put the phosphorescent light on it, it reacts with the magnesium, the manganese in the rock, and it lights up in what it's called barbecue rock. And on the right here is core from Deer Trail. There's a mag silver project down in Utah, and they use this to track towards the source. The redder it is, the hotter color it is, the closer you are to the source. So as you can see, ours is screaming pink color here. So it's looking good in that aspect. A few catalysts here to look forward to. Like I said, we have copper aspect in both CRD and the porphyry style system here, which is our proven model that we're following. VTEM survey is being flown right now, which should be able to help us track these mantos back to the source. We got cash in the bank right now, highly experienced technical team and consultants working with us, and I am heading to the property here in about 2 hours. So that was why I had to go first. Thank you for having me. Any questions, you guys can email me at nrob@coreassetscorp.com, or you can call as well, and I can answer any further technical questions. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Just double checking here, see if there's any questions directly for Core, but if there is, just go ahead and put them in the chat. Not seeing anything specifically for Core, unless that's, no. So, okay, great, Nick, and if we do get any questions, we'll be sure to, oh, we do actually have one here, sorry. What's the net present value of the project?
Currently, this is a discovery story, so the NPV wouldn't be something we would have right now. That would be something down the road here if we end up making a discovery and putting together a financial model. So again, it's an early stage story. We are on the brinks of discovery, hopefully, and that is the plan.
Okay, great. All right, so up next then is going to be Larry here from Nobel. If you want to go first for Nobel, and then we can talk about Emerita at the end there if you'd like.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to try to screen share as well. I prepared just a handful of slides, and I'll run through both companies pretty quickly. Nobel Resources is a, can you see my screen? Can everybody see that?
Try again there, Larry.
I lost it somehow, hang on. How's that?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Nobel Resources is a relatively newly formed copper project in Chile, early stage, and we're very excited about it. As I'll expand in the few slides we have here, it is a tight capital structure, cheap relative market cap to other copper companies, and it's in Chile. It's got the right zip code and surrounded by a lot of major copper producers. Next slide. This is our disclaimer. I'll just move on from that. So it's a IOCG project, and the land mass for this is extensive. It's a very big property. There's a chart later in the diagram. As I mentioned, it's strategically located in Chile, probably the world's best copper jurisdiction. And the location in Chile is very good. It's at low elevation. It's about 25 kilometers from the port. There's a smelter close by. You can access the property by a paved road, and there's water and hydro available. So the infrastructure is really good. And the climate for operating in Chile from a legal perspective and available resources is very good. It's located in the heart of a major belt. It's in the world class. It's around the world class IOCG deposits. Candelaria, Lundine's property, is about 60 kilometers south, and it has similar geology to our property. It's very high grade. The historical grades and some of the samples run up to 30% copper. So there's a chart later in the presentation, but I'll get into that momentarily. It has had some production. It was an active licensed mine that was in production. It was mostly artisanal. There's a local that had been mining it with his team for approximately 20 years. He's now he's in his mid 60s and approaching retirement. But it was not mined from with any sort of traditional or advanced mining technology. They really just had a backhoe and were just scraping the surface, and it was artisanal. They would go down to about 30 meters, and they're cut off to take ore to the refinery was 12%. So they've actually stockpiled any ore that didn't meet that grade. Management team's very good. We've got an experienced team on the ground in Chile and an experienced team here in Toronto to run the company. The capital structure, as I mentioned, it was an RTO at 40 cents a share, currently trading today about 33, I believe. There's fully diluted, there's 70 million shares out, so that puts our market cap on the presentation here. It was at 40 cents. It's about 22 million, if I'm doing that math in my head correctly. Cash is about 7 million. So we actually have a story that's fully funded for the exploration we're going to do probably for the next year, listed on the Toronto Venture, tickers NBLC. It's a really interesting opportunity, again, in the right zip code, good capital structure, and we've really just started the work on this property. We've had a press release with a few exploratory holes, but we've just finished the ground mag. The IP is finishing now, and that will really set up our core targets for the next sort of 3 to 6 months. So it'll take us, we'll press release the mag and the IP shortly, and targets where we're going to drill, but that will really set up hopefully a flow of news and a campaign that'll last over at least through to the end of the year and probably into the first half of next year. So just this slide 4, it's a world-class mining district. It just shows you the location within Chile along the coast. There's a lot of world-class mines, in this area, 6 operating copper mines within 100 kilometers. Lundine's Candelaria, very close by. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, copper producer in the world. 25 kilometers from the port of Caldera, and the infrastructure is excellent in this area. Here's a map of the property. So if you can see my cursor, the historical artisanal mining has been done where they scrape the land along surface, and they basically just chip out the rock. They don't have any ventilation, so they go down about 30 meters, and that's as far as they can go. That was all done up in this area. The project is actually quite vast. I believe that's about 4 kilometers, that piece. So if you look at the size of it, it's a huge area. And the pink versus the tan color, that is just the sand overburden. So the property is really quite extensive. And again, they've been mining copper on this property for 20 years at surface. Here are a number of here's the sampling we did, and this is definitely sort of cherry picking the best samples out of all. We took about 200 samples, but you can see the copper grades and the widths of them. So the property, what this does is shows that high grade does exist on the property, and the property quite extensively has copper sort of throughout of it. These are the grades, obviously the widths, and this was the location that correlates with the map that was on the previous page. If anybody wants this presentation, just reach out after, and we'll provide it to you. So the next slide is just shows you again the scale. This is the recent work that was done with the MAG. And again, up here, this is the entire property, same sort of formation as the previous, the slide 2 previous. This is the area that the artisanal mining was working, and this is all of the, just shows you all the unexplored areas. There's been no exploration in this, and we're going to target. We're seeing some good target areas that match up with the IP here and here, and various other places. So. We're very excited about what's about to come. It's lining up that we should have some really good areas to explore here. These are just a couple of pictures that show what the artisanal mining looks like. I mean, it's very sort of rudimentary. There's no technology. The sort of tunnels around surface are around a couple meters wide, and you can see the ore. That's probably north of 2 or 3% copper. It goes, up to very high grades, and you can sort of see it in the wall rocking around as well. This is just sort of our market cap at 23 million. I do realize that all of these companies have resources and are more advanced than we are, but we do think that the program that we're about to launch could get us into this range. So there's an enormous amount of upside. I would argue not a lot of downside at this point, given where our market cap is. And everyone on the call is focused on copper. Copper has been extremely hot, and we believe that the company will remain hot for easily the foreseeable future. So that concludes my sort of prepared comments. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. My background is I'm a director of the company. I'm not an employee of the company. I worked in the acquisition of the property, the financing of the company, and the RTO. So I was quite involved in that area. My day job is I am involved in capital markets in Toronto, more traditionally on the mutual fund and investment fund area. I was a founding partner at Purpose Investments, and most recently joined as a managing director at a company called Next Edge Capital. So I am involved from a mutual fund perspective more on a day-to-day basis, but I am a director of both Nobel and Emerita, which we're presenting today, and I'm not a geologist. So, but happy to answer any questions that anyone might have on Nobel.
We do have a couple questions that have come in the chat here, Larry. So the first one, can you elaborate on the tight capital structure? What's your monthly cash burn rate?
The cash burn rate annually is only about $1.4 million. We believe that we could quite easily raise more money. The capital markets have been hot, but we don't need any. We think we're fully funded through this program for at least the next 12 months. That includes the drilling and operational plan that we've laid out, and all of the admin and salaries and everything that would be required, to operating expenses that would be required to run the business.
Okay, and do you know what the percentage of insider ownership is?
It's about 17%, I believe. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we before the RTO, the float's about 70 million. Before the RTO, insiders owned about 25 million shares, so about a third. That's rough math.
Great. And then last one here, when do you expect drilling to be completed?
We're going to start, I believe, in about, we're still completing the IP and need to sort of assess the work. And there are some of the first exploratory holes we put in that are still to be released. So I think it'll take about a month to put that together, and we should be drilling again in a month with a larger plan that will drill over a number of months. I kind of expect it'll be, because it is early stage and there has not been any previous work on the property. I believe that it will go in kind of stages. So you'll drill certain areas to test them, see the results, and then move around the property as required. But I think the work will be fairly consistent over the next 6 months. So there should be there hasn't been a lot of news. If you look at the company and look sort of historically over the last few months, we've released the news that was available, but I do expect a steady stream of news going between about 3 weeks out from now and through to the end of the year, if not through to the end of Q1 of 2022.
Okay, great. Looks like that's all we have for Noble. For the questions, again, if you have any others, you can put it in the chat. But if you want to go ahead and talk about Emerita, that'd be great.
Okay, so I'm also involved as a director of Emerita. I've been involved with Emerita for a long time, as an investor for the last 8 years, and as a director for the last couple of years. I'm just trying to find the presentation here. That worked, I think. As was mentioned at the start of the call, Emerita is in a different place, and it's quite a different company. And it's been a long haul for people that have been in it for 8 years, but the time is now, I believe, for Emerita, and I will expand on that in the slides coming up. So Emerita is a base metals company. The property that we're drilling now, Linfanta, has very high copper grades, which is why we're presenting on the copper call today. But it's quite a more complex story. There's 2 main properties. I will move past the disclaimer slide again and to the summary catalyst page, and why this is exciting. So over 8 years, Emerita participated in 2 tender processes that the government of Spain put out with no cost to the project. They would come in just for the work, but you had to show your work plan and bid on them, and that happened over the last 8 years. Both of them, the company initially lost, and we contested both of them in court. The first one is the Iberia Belt West project, IBW, which Emerita has now went to the Supreme Court of Spain. Emerita has now been awarded the project and owns it outright 100%. That is the project that we're currently drilling. The company is extremely well financed. We just closed a bought deal last month through Claris, Industrial Alliance, and Mackey Research. That added 20 million to the treasury. There was about 8 million in cash in the bank at the time. And there's also about another 6 to 8 million in the money warrants that have been coming in sort of on a regular basis. So the company's well financed for the next probably 24 months for all the work it wants to do. And the catalysts are really important to the company. I'll expand on them later, but the first one is going to be on IBW. It's going to be just the drilling between now and the end of the year. We recently added a second drill. So the news flow is going to be consistent, and I'll explain that just on that property alone through to the end of the year, and I'll explain that later. There's a couple slides on IBW. Simultaneous to that, or we think will likely happen also in Q4, the Asna Collar litigation, which was the second process that we fought in the courts. We believe it's coming to a conclusion. So the most recent court ruling assessed that there was a crime committed in the award of this public tender. It was a criminal case in Spain. We also have a subsequent sort of civil case. And why that's important and why this is a catalyst now is the Supreme Court has ruled that a crime was committed. There were 16 people, some government officials, some private sector people that were found guilty. We're moving to the sentencing phase there. There's no ability for appeals. And there's no ability to add sort of new evidence. So that's coming very quickly. And what that does for the company, our Spanish counsel has said, and the questions that normally come up around this, and we can deal with them at the end, are the government is not permitted to retender the process. To retender the project. What happens when a crime was committed in a public tender, that bidder is disqualified, and it immediately goes to the next qualified bidder. The courts have ruled that Emerita was the only other qualified bidder. So the conclusion of the criminal case actually cements the fact that we believe we'll be awarded this project. That's the advice we're getting. So we're quite excited about it. We think after all this time, it's finally going to come to the company, and that will be a second catalyst for Q4. There's also a link down here. So there's been some, Claris has research, Mackey Research Capital has research on the company that you can probably find accessible online, but the best research that's independent is from an investor who I've never spoken to directly. I believe David Gower, the CEO, has, but he, if you can see the URL down here, docjonesresourceinvestor.wordpress.com. He's done extensive independent research, and I think it's actually the best research that's available on the company, and it's extremely detailed, a lot more info and a lot more technical info than you're going to see from me on the call today. So the Iberia Bell West project, there are two historical drill results on that property. So it divides into three projects. One is Lanfanta, which we're drilling now. That was originally drilled, I believe, in the 90s, and has some extremely high-grade results, which I'll show you in the next slide, of which copper being one of the top ones. It was drilled. There are about 40 historic holes in it. And the middle project is called El Cura, and the project on the far right of the property is called Romanera. And why this is unique is Romanera has about approximately 11 million tons of high grade. Lanfanta has about 1 to 2 million tons of high grade, and El Cura is sitting in the middle. And all three of those projects in the 90s, when Romanera and Lanfanta were previously drilled, were owned by different mining companies. It's the first time that the land package has been consolidated. And so when Lanfanta was previously drilled, it was still open at strike and at depth, but they ran into the property boundary. We don't have those constraints. So the initial drilling at Lanfanta is going to be, and why it's exciting is, the grades are extremely high. There are 40 historical holes in it, and I'll show you on the next slide. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a few of the drilling, a little bit of the drilling program, but a quarter of it to twin some of the old holes to prove out the results, but also to expand it. And so the information flow, as I stated before, could be phenomenal on the drilling side on this project as a catalyst over the next 4 to 8 months, because we're going to drill Lanfanta, then El Cura in the middle, and followed up with Romanera. When the company that was originally awarded this, that when we contested, this wasn't a criminal case, it was more just a title dispute, was Trafigura in Spain, and they had submitted their work plan before it was subsequently reversed and awarded to us. They had submitted their work plan, and there was a lot of emphasis in their work plan on El Cura in the middle. So it should be a very exciting next few months for this project. As Nicola, the summary, why this one is significant. Iberia Belt West has great historical numbers, but it doesn't have the resource size yet. We think that we can prove it up with the drill bit. But as Nicola was a producing mine by Boliden in the 90s, it had a tailings pond collapse, and it was subsequently cleaned up and retendered by the Spanish government. It has a historical resource grading 20 million tons of high grade. It is an exceptional property, and we believe this has the ability to be substantially expanded as well. As you can see on this slide, there's a bit of information on the court case. The number of actually confirmed individuals convicted is now increased to 16. And as I stated before, we're just waiting for the sentencing phase of that to conclude. The management team on this company, so the basic shares outstanding, this was trading around $1.60 today, I believe, $1.50 today, I believe. The share fully diluted were about 223 million shares. David Gower is the CEO. His background is he ran international mining for Falcon Bridge and Noranda, which is how the two projects we're presenting today have come to us. And why that's important is, he utilizes his old partners from Noranda Falcon Bridge, who are the local geologists in the different areas. So Joaquin Moreno, who is a geologist, he's Spanish. He lives in Spain, operates the team in Spain, but he did his geology degree at Queen's, so he speaks English, and he's registered in Canada as a geologist. We also have good internal counsel here who speak Spanish, speak and write Spanish. So that's been quite helpful to to dealing with our legal team in Spain. Only it doesn't speak English at all. Myself, I already went through my background, but we also have a number of directors in the company who are versed on the legal side and the capital market side. So it's a good management team and a strong board. This just covers the it's in the right area of Spain. I mean, again, the infrastructure is phenomenal here. It is one of the best base metals mining areas in the world. There are a number of major historical mining companies, and all the majors are sort of operating in this area. So why we're really excited about IBW and Asnacollar is that individually or collectively, we're surrounded by majors who we believe will be attracted to either or both of these projects. Asnacollar, we believe that once awarded this, that we'll have interest from majors right off the bat. We've already had interest from majors to JV IBW separately. Here's just a snapshot of some of the historical holes that were drilled on the property. Extremely high grade. You can see copper over 6 meter intercept grading 4%. Also very high lead, zinc, silver. And the takeaway from this is when you collectively add all this up, it becomes a phenomenally valuable ore that's very economic. I mean, copper companies are ecstatic about grades like this. Silver companies, you have silver companies who only have this, and the zinc, although it's not as interesting a metal currently, it's extremely high grade zinc and very attractive for any of the major mining companies. Asnacollar, just some more of the specifics here. So Asnacollar is more of a zinc deposit. It also has a lot of silver, and just some of the numbers here: approximately 20 million tons of high grade, grading greater than 10% zinc lead. It is at surface. It was historically an open pit, but our mine plan would be to do underground mining to sort of eliminate any of the environmental concerns. It's well drilled. This was drilled to a reserve, so it has about 300 holes in it. So there's really not a whole lot of concern around what the historical data. It's all available online as well. And Doc Jones with his work has highlighted some of that on his page if you want to take a look. Again, the court case is coming to a final ruling, and our counsel in Spain believes that we will be awarded this shortly. This is just a chart of the original open pit. It shows you that it was originally 70 million tons. We're focused on on this section, which is grades almost up to 20 million tons of high grade. So where this can be expanded and why it's really exciting is it was only drilled down to about 300 meters, I believe. And the last drill hole was the intercept was 40 meters wide. So it was still, which was, I believe, the widest section. So it's still open at depth. So this as an underground mine can be greatly expanded. And there are also a number of other deposits that we haven't included in this model. So we believe that the reserve here can be dramatically expanded to make this, one of the best sort of mining projects in the world that's not currently controlled by a major or a government. And I think that's the end of my prepared comments here. It's just, I'll just reiterate, it's a very exciting time for Emerita. The stock's been phenomenal this year, and we think that the upside remains enormous, and the news flow for the next 4 months should be phenomenal on this name. If there's any questions.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Those are two awesome presentations. I think there were a couple questions throughout that for Emerita, but Doc Jones seems to have been able to handle those as he does. So if there are any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, Dave, I'll hand it off to you. Or actually, sorry, there is one that just came in. So could you please elaborate on the status of the Asnacollar case? There seems to be some confusion amongst investors as to when the trial of the 16 accused will take place. There was a local article in Spain that claimed the earliest case could be heard is 23-24.
Our legal counsel in Spain has advised that this phase of it usually moves very quickly. So we were actually expecting to have trial dates set before August 1st. And we expect the trial to be within the next 3 months. They call it a trial in Spain. I think it's more of a sentencing hearing. What our counsel in Spain has advised us is that a guilty verdict has been rendered, a crime has been committed, and what happens now in this phase is there's about a 2-day process, we estimate, just because there's so many convicted people, 16, where the judge, he does not rule on whether or not a crime has been committed. He parcels out the punishments. So whether it's fines, jail time, whatever it is, we really don't care who gets what and how it gets parceled out. Some of the potential for these people is very significant. In the company's appeal, our counsel asked for jail terms for who we thought were the 3 most guilty people of greater than 10 years each individually for all 3 of them. But at the end of the day, all that really matters is that one person is convicted of a crime, which we believe cements our award of this project. So it's just the last piece we believe that in the next couple of months, 2 months, the sentencing phase will be concluded. The crimes the punishments will have been handed out. There's nowhere else to go with the case from a criminal perspective, and that will cause the award of the project to Emerita at that point. So I can't guarantee timeline, but we really think that there's a strong possibility that award comes in Q4, and what our legal team has really driven home as the most important thing is that now that the crime's been established and the sentencing is about to be completed, there's nowhere else to go with this legally in Spain. It will be awarded to Emerita, and I guess we think very quickly.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all we have for you there. Dave, did you want
to? Folks from Zimtu Capital Corp, thanks for coming. I hope your future is very coppery. My name's Dave Hodge. We're out of here.